Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So one of the things that we just talked about, it is the test that happened of the Muslim Ummah through Al-Abad al-Islam, and it's still happening. And the example that we gave was 4 different types of tests, and A/B testing is one of them, where you prove out one thing, one scenario, and then you test the other scenario by testing that proven out scenario. So in A testing, for example, Imam Ali alayhi salam had proven his strength, his vigor, his valor in different situations. As an individual, in a one-on-one combat against Amr bin Abdul Wad and Azab, and in one-on-one combat while he was sick in the battle of Khaybar against Marhab Antar Haris, in combat as individual as part of an army which was ill-equipped and didn't have any support, but fought against a big army, for example, Badr. And then when the army was losing, and to stand ground and support the cause of Allah, the light of Allah, for example, in Uhud and Hunain, and to convey the message individually without the need of anyone in as part of presenting Surah Al-Bara, and then defending individually the household of the Prophet as a youth, as a young individual in his early 20s, to defend Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, the light of Allah. So he did all of those things, and he had proven himself. When people come and say that why didn't he stand up, or was he a coward that he didn't stand up to defend his wife, it wasn't about him. It was about the people who were living in Medina. It was about the Muslims who were being tested. These are the Muslims who had just performed the final Hajj with the Prophet, who had just pledged allegiance to Imam Ali alayhi salam, who had just pledged their life to the cause of Allah, who were reading the Quran, who were praying, and they were being trained to stand up against injustice, to stand with justice, to stand with what is right. It was their test when they were being called by Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, when her house was being burned, when the door was being smashed on her, when her unborn child was being killed. It was the test of the people of that area, who were all Muslims, to stand up and prove their strength, to stand up and prove that they have some dignity, to stand up and prove that they will stand for the cause of Allah. It wasn't a test of Imam Ali alayhi salam's strength. It wasn't a test of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. It was a test for everyone, and everyone, most of the people except for few, failed. And that is why Nabat alayhi salam and that event was a test for the Ummah. Now, one more thing I want to call: Allah's plan is Allah's plan. Allah made sure that Imam Ali alayhi salam defended Sayyidah Fatima Zahra when before the lineage of the holy Imams had started. And then it was Allah's plan to test the people through Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. If they had defended, if they had agreed to the covenant of Allah that Allah had revealed in Surah Al-Maidah, and had agreed to the Imam Ali alayhi salam, that would have resulted in a very different Muslim Ummah, in a very different world, where the bounties of Allah would have flowed fluently, openly. And then when they ignored the concept, when they failed the test, when they did not fulfill the covenant that they had made to Allah, they failed the test, that's when the world took a different path. And that's very similar to what happens in our life. When we fail tests and we do not repent, do not change ourselves, do not prepare hard to perform that test and take that test and pass this test, because the test doesn't change. It is we who have to change to pass that test. if we do not change, then our path becomes very different. For example, a person who does a lot of work to go to a medical school and cannot complete the USMLE exam, that that test, if the person doesn't complete that test and they go in a different direction, that person will not become a doctor. They will have a very different life than if they would have become a doctor. Could be a good life, could be a bad life, whatever that might be, but that won't be a life of being a doctor in the United States. That's the same concept. A person, these Muslims, they had something amazing for them, already planned by Allah. But they failed the test, they did not change themselves, and now they have a life which is very different than what was planned by Allah.